Hey, I'm Anthony, recovery coach. Who are you? What are you? What's making the decisions? Is it your brain? Is it your mind? Is it the programmer? Which one of these? What's the difference? Well, in this video, I'm going to go over those three things. And who's the boss? Is it the brain? Is it the mind? Or is it you? Now, if you've spoken to anyone who's been drinking a lot, or let's say they've, well, done a lot of drugs and they've done things that they'd rather have not done, or they're looking for a reason or justification of why they took the money, why they did the drug. And I'm not saying they're lying, but they will give you an indication right then and there what they are and what has actually happened that is actually controlling their life. Now, quickly, the brain is something in there. It's actually more like a hard drive. It only does what you tell it to do by the program, and you, ideally, who insert the program or write the program. So there's you, the programmer, the program, the code, which is also known as the mind, or the brain. Now, the brain has been around for a long time for most of us in the humankind and kingdom, and it has a very simple objective, and that is to make this thing survive. That's it. And how does it run? It has basically two directions to go, and very limited. You'll understand that if you've ever talked to people who are black and white thinkers and so on, yes and no type people. I don't mean decisive people. I simply mean if they can't see any of the other options. Okay, no other choices, it's yes or no. Very, you know, very polar, one or the other. Mostly that sort of brain thinking. Does it give me pleasure or does it give me pain? The two simplest aspects of how the brain functions. It avoids pain and seeks pleasure. And sometimes it will even seek pleasure and counteract its major goal, its major command, which is survive. That will be a part of a different conversation. But if you want to get into, well, why would a person want to kill themselves and so on? Well, after a certain amount of chaos is inserted into a person's life, the simple thing that the unit, the body, the brain is trying to do is get rid of itself slowly or quickly and move on so others can move on without them. That's brain, okay? It's a survival, avoid pain, go toward pleasure, and that's it. That's basically a machine. If you've ever watched any of the Frankenstein movies, that is the brain in action. It is perfect replication of the brain without much of a mind and definitely without much of a programmer. It's just surviving, it's avoiding pain and going toward pleasure. Okay? Now, if you've heard an alcoholic say, I don't know what controlled me. I was just going, I said I wasn't going to drink or do drugs that day. And it was like, I wasn't even in control of my body. Well, that's the brain taking over fully. It's called an automaticity. Something is automatic. Okay. Not an ideal state, but sometimes, hey, we use our little automatic reflexes. And so we can get through our day without having to focus on the million different processes that are going on in our body every day. I get it. When it comes to executive type thinking, important stuff, you want to be not only inserting the program, writing the program, you want to be programming and you want to be controlling it directly. Let's get on to the programming piece, the mind. What is the mind? Well, essentially, it's a program. It's like software, it's like code. It's the directions on what to do and when to do it. It's all the learnings we've had. It's all the skills and the abilities and the tasks and the functions we can do. Those are all stored in the mind. It has a fairly long track in a person's recollection. Some of it is less conscious, some of it is more conscious, some of it is fully aware. But that's the mind in essence. It's commands, it's directions, it's observations, it's data, it's information. can be stored in all kinds of ways. It can be in picture format. It can be in recall format, meaning simply a memory of what occurred. It can be the recollections of emotions, feelings, attitudes, details, information, all that. Now, a person who will say, hey, I'm having trouble staying, off drugs, or I'm having, a hard time with this activity or learning this new skill. It's the programming that either hasn't been properly inserted, they have the wrong programming, maybe they have conflicting programs on how to do that skill, say, who knows, play the game of basketball, or could be as complex as running a very challenging and tightly contested legal decision in the courts with all kinds of factors involved, public defenders, defenders, prosecutors, you name it, judges, public opinion, former laws. You have all these other conflicting, let's say, programs, and the lawyer, barrister, depending on where you are, if they're very good, will be able to navigate through all these sometimes and usually conflicting, not parallel or aligned, programs or directions. And in a nutshell, this is somewhat of your life. Okay? You are that individual in a trial situation, having to make decisions, make justifications, or fit in everything you're doing on a daily basis toward your plea toward winning the case or going forward with a particular motion. That's the skill of someone who can function and operate with the mind. Now, the lawyer is somewhat using the mind, in this case, to construct a story in order to present the preferable version of the situation or the case for everyone else to see so that they get a favorable outcome. And the whole collection of this is done by the programmer. That would be you. Okay, so now we're going to get into the you stage. Who are you? Well, you're the programmer. And depending on your religious or spiritual or non-spiritual or points of view, you're the person driving the vehicle. You're the person making the decisions. You're the individual who is, in many cases, writing the code or choosing the code or choosing or sorting out which program is correct or incorrect. Now, when you're doing this well and you're aware of it, we say you're running your own life. You are the captain of your own ship. You are, what's the Spanish song? Anyway, it'll come to me. Okay, I'll use my mind, but now I'm giving you a talk on the difference between you, the programmer, the mind, and the brain. So when an individual is truly commanding their life, and they're commanding their mind, and they're commanding their brain, they're in charge. And now sometimes the brain and or the mind may have a problem with the decision that they're making, and the individual may have to coordinate and align those tasks better. You see, you might have been training your brain to be functioning on alcohol or drugs every day, every other day, for those pharma users several times a day, and it is programmed. The brain has been programmed that way, and to some degree the mind has, because you believe that these drugs are doing something. Every time you say they are, it drives a pattern into the brain. Okay, and the brain has chemicals primarily run on electricity, in some cases magnetism, a lot actually, and chemistry. So these functions are influencing the brain's behavior. So this is getting complex, you say, Anthony. Oh my God, what about all this? Well, if you've been using drugs or alcohol, pharma, if you've been using drugs or alcohol to shift how you think, shift how you feel, shift how your attitude is, your behavior, your beliefs, you've been programming your brain to act a certain way. And if you've been doing that for some time, it's going to become automatic. And your brain is going to start taking over because it's just easier when you're out of it. You ever hear anyone say that? You know, they're out of it, they were too drunk, they don't remember, etc. But how did you get home? I don't know. Well, chances are their brain commanded their actions to their mind, to the programmer on what to do. Their brain was in charge. I'm going to just show you what this, now ideally what this looks like is you are telling your mind, giving information to your mind, telling your mind what to do, which programs to use, sorting all that out. You're doing that. And then your mind is programming your brain on how to better successfully live, succeed, be happy. Now, if it goes the other way and your brain starts telling your mind what to do, which is telling you what to do, that sounds to me like an addict or an alcoholic or a pharmaceutically dependent individual. Okay? The brain is now in charge. Remember my reference back to the Frankenstein movies. Doesn't look too pretty. And it's driven, the brain will drive the mind and the body and you on seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. I hope this talk on who's in charge, who's in control, what's in control has been helpful to you. My name's Anthony. I'm a recovery coach, yourrehab.coach. That's where you find me. And if you're interested in getting into this further, find me on my site. We'll get into it and properly help you program the mind that you want with the brain and the attitudes and the outcomes that you most desire. My name's Anthony. It's been a pleasure.